Everything you have is because people paid you, not because you earned it. Don't mistake compassion for actual worth, Sloane said with a smile. Just loud enough for the room to hear, just cruel enough to make sure I'd never forget. If you've ever been made to feel like an outsider in your own family, labeled a burden while quietly enduring it all, then this story is for you. Keep watching, because sometimes the cruelest silence is just the prelude to a reckoning no one saw coming. I leaned back in my leather chair, the view of Manhattan glittering behind the double glass walls of my corner office. From this height, people looked like possibilities. Tiny moving pieces I could shift or ignore. But my past that still had weight. I could hear it in Sloane's voice even before I picked up the phone. Cass, she chirped, fake warmth wrapped in a velvet noose. Did you get the invite? It's going to be so elegant this year. Fairmont Pavilion, Boston. Truly elite. You know, senators, a royal or two, the kind of place that really elevates. I'm familiar with the venue, I replied, reaching for the glass of still water beside me. Oh good, she said brightly, oblivious. You know, with your hospitality background, I figured you'd appreciate how much work it took for us to land it. Daddy said I had an eye for prestige. I didn't correct her. Didn't tell her that the pavilion was the crown jewel of my empire, that every square inch from the scent profile to the soundproofing was approved by my hand, that the work she'd done was submitting a request through our VIP client portal, and that I personally had clicked accept with a 50% markup. Sounds like quite the accomplishment, I said evenly. You have no idea, she gushed. I mean, the pavilion's not exactly accessible, right? I smiled. Not that she could see. True, but exclusivity is relative. She laughed. Oh, Cass, you've always had sense of humor. Then, as if the mask slipped for just a moment. Anyway, just wanted to give you a heads up. We're keeping the guest list tight this year. No offense, just you know how image is everything. No offense. I ended the call with a quiet, of course maybe next year, and watched my reflection settle back into the glass, calm, composed, unbothered. But inside, something colder stirred. Not anger, not even hurt, just precision, like the weight of a scalpel in a surgeon's hand. My phone pinged. It was Ethan. Ethan, they really didn't include your name. Want me to raise hell? I smiled. Me? Not yet. I turned to Noah, who stood beside my desk like the final period on a sentence. Confirm something for me, I said. The Langford booking at the pavilion. What channel did it come through? VIP portal, he replied instantly. Approved last week. Event code Algis 1124. You authorized it. Good. I opened my laptop and tapped into the master file. The ballroom lighting schedule appeared. Then the fragrance control panel, champagne list, name card layout, stage programming. Every line item routed through me. I increased the per-hour valet charge. Tripled the ambient scent rotation. Replaced the classical quartet with a modern jazz trio. Just enough deviation to unsettle anyone expecting familiarity. Then I highlighted the final field, master event contact. Cassidy Moore, CO Monroe Lux Group. I didn't change it. I didn't need to. Noah raised an eyebrow. Want to pull the plug? We still can. No, I said quietly. Let them walk in. He nodded, then hesitated. Want to increase the hosting rate? Already done. I looked at the glowing signature box on the invoice and add a premium tier for legacy clients. Bold. I leaned back again, the city stretching endlessly below us. Calculated. As he left, I crafted a message to Ethan. Me. Can you make sure everyone gets there exactly at 7 p.m.? Then why me? Let's just say the welcome speech is coming from an unexpected source. I stared at the monitor a moment longer, watching as the animation of the pavilion's main ballroom spun lazily in 3D. The ceiling, the floors, the lighting, all mine. They had no idea. I thought of Sloane's bridal shower years ago, how she'd accidentally seated me near the janitor's closet. Your crowd, she'd whispered with a grin, like it was a joke only we were allowed to find funny. Like I was a punchline in a story I never wrote. That chapter was over. I highlighted the scent field and programmed in a new signature aroma. Saffron, bergamot, and steel-cut cedar, the scent of power, of elegance, of new rules. This time I whispered to myself, I'll be the one handing out the seating chart. When you control the venue, you don't just host the event. You choreograph the fall. The ballroom gleamed beneath the custom crystal chandeliers, each one tuned to cast golden light at precisely calculated angles. Not too soft, not too stark, intimate but commanding. I stepped across the polished marble floor, heels tapping in perfect sync with the muted jazz echoing through the concealed speakers. Tomorrow this space would be full of Langfords. Smiling, pining, oblivious until they weren't. I paused at the head table. 12 seats, exactly 12. The last time I sat at a Langford event, I was wedged between the server station and a trash bin. Sloane had called it a logistical error. I'd been wearing my best coat, a second-hand wool trench I could barely afford. Then tonight I wore custom charcoal and control. No Langford serves. My father once snapped when I announced I'd taken a job in hotel management. His words had cracked something in me. Not loud but permanent. And now the irony. I wasn't serving them. I was serving them up. Cassidy. Noah's voice was soft behind me. I turned and he held up a tablet. Lighting cues confirmed. Scent diffusers installed and tested. Jazz Trio arrives at noon tomorrow. Want to approve the champagne list? I took the tablet and scanned the selections. I'd handpicked each vintage. Notes of resilience, undertones of class. Add the Krug 2008, I said, but only 2 bottles. Make it seem exclusive, he nodded. Understood. As he walked off, I approached the far corner of the ballroom where a curved LED wall towered 2 stories high behind a translucent curtain. Currently blank, it hummed faintly with idle energy. I pulled up the hidden interface on my phone. The reveal queue was locked. 7:15 p.m., exactly 15 minutes after all guests would have arrived and settled into the illusion they built. I tapped once to confirm. A member of the staff, a young brunette in a blazer too large for her frame, stepped near, balancing a clipboard and nerves. "Excuse me, miss," she said. "Mr. Monroe wanted these menus double-CH checked before printing." I took the clipboard. "Mr. Monroe is quite thorough." "Oh, he is," she said, exhaling and responsive. "We've never had a VIP client so precise. Every detail, timing, lighting, even the scent programming. He knows exactly what he wants." I smiled without showing teeth. "He does." She flushed slightly, probably embarrassed at her own enthusiasm. "It's just refreshing. Most clients care about the flowers. He seems to care about how people feel. That's what makes it unforgettable," I said, handing the clipboard back. As she walked away, I adjusted a hydrangea centerpiece half an inch to the left. The table became instantly more balanced, like truth shifting into focus. There's power in details that no one notices until they're wrong. My phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. "Ethan, they think you're working at a roadside motel. Sloane actually said maybe she can send cookies from her in." I read it twice, then once more. My fingers hovered above the screen. Me. Tomorrow they'll get more than cookies. I tucked the phone away and headed to the executive suite on the second floor, which I had claimed as temporary HQ. Noah was already there, standing beside a mahogany table holding 6 navy blue folders, each embossed with a gold crest. "Are crest press kits inside?" I asked. He opened one. Full profiles, financials, press coverage, and the master invoice. He tapped the last page, approved at the legacy premium rate. I smiled and opened the drawer of the carved desk, lined in suede. One by one, I placed the folders inside, aligning the edges until they looked like something a Langford would trust. Distribution plan staff trained to hand them to Richard, Sloane, Uncle Dean, and the core family once the reveal lands. Good. I stood a moment in silence, staring down at the gold lettering. Monroe Lux Group underneath, backed by ML Partners. They didn't know that name. Not yet, but they would. I turned toward the window. Boston's skyline glowed across the harbor, timeless and blind. They wouldn't see it coming. I checked my phone one last time. On the screen, a black background in white numbers revealed T-1 day 0 hours 14 minutes. They came dressed in couture and pride, stepping through golden doors I had paid for without realizing whose kingdom they had entered. The valet lane outside the pavilion sparkled with chrome and designer logos. Rolls-Royce, Bentley, the occasional Tesla with plates that bragged more than they identified. Inside, the grand ballroom was already humming with soft conversation and sharper judgments. My family always moved like they were the ones being watched, even when they were the least interesting people in the room. I watched from the private control suite on the mezzanine level, a silent figure in the shadows. The security feed flickered across. 6 flat screens, each capturing a different corner of the ballroom, each streaming a symphony of shallow compliments and sharper smiles. Down below, Sloane stood beneath the pavilion's golden arch, striking poses with her arms outstretched like she was being crowned. The floor-length crimson Dior gown clung to her every intention. She greeted guests like a diplomat, air-kissing cheeks, pressing palms with donors and distant cousins alike. Her voice carried just enough to be overheard, just loud enough to make sure you knew she knew someone more important than you. I told Daddy the venue had to be memorable, she said to a tech investor's wife, clutching a champagne flute like it was a wand. The pavilion just has that pedigree, doesn't it? She didn't know that every inch of that pedigree bore my signature. From the chandelier heights to the imported Italian plaster behind her perfectly curated photo op. She didn't know that the scent in the air, which she probably chalked up to elegance, was part of a proprietary formula I designed years ago to trigger emotional resonance at subconscious levels. Ethan entered frame in the lower right monitor. He adjusted his cuff links and nodded toward the main entrance, then discreetly tapped his phone. Mine buzzed a second later. Ethan, all here, full guest list accounted for. I typed back 2 words. Me. Showtime. Noah stood beside me, tablet in hand, already syncing the cues. I didn't need to speak. He tapped twice. Once for lighting pre-shift. Once to initiate LED wall sync. And then I left the control suite. I moved through the private hallway behind the ballroom, heels silent against thick carpet, the hum of the event muffled but insistent like a current gathering charge. The door to the main floor opened with a whisper. I stepped out just as the pavilion's general manager approached Sloane, interrupting her mid-photo. I'm terribly sorry, Miss Langford, he said with a professional smile. But the property owner has requested a slight change to tonight's program. Sloane's laughter faltered mid-sentence, her smile twitched. Excuse me. The manager remained poised. There's been an update regarding the event designation. The owner is here and asked to make a brief announcement. Sloane blinked, confused. That was my cue. I stepped forward from behind the champagne tower, smooth and silent, my Tom Ford suit catching the chandelier light like armor. Eyes followed the movement. Conversations thinned. A few glasses lowered mid-sip. As I said, voice calm. Even I did. Silence, heavy and brittle. The kind that filled a room like water fills a glass. Inevitable. Absolute. Sloane turned toward me, not fully registering. Richard Langford stepped closer, brows knitting into a furrow. Cassidy, he said. The name felt foreign in his mouth. I didn't stop. I walked past startled relatives, past the donor circle, past cousins who once called me hospital girl behind my back. I stepped onto the central platform and gave Noah a slight nod. The ballroom dimmed, then bloomed in gold. The LED wall came to life with a gentle flicker. First showing the pavilion's logo, then a clean white screen. Black lettering faded in, bold and simple. Monroe Pavilion, owned and operated by Cassidy Moore. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then came the sound. A sharp, delicate crack. A champagne flute slipped from someone's fingers and shattered on the marble floor. I didn't flinch. I looked out at the sea of faces, painted, powdered, puzzled. The same ones that once looked through me like I was ornamental. Now they looked up. I didn't need to raise my voice. The room had already gone silent. They looked at me like I'd grown fangs, but I'd only grown teeth sharp enough to survive. The light from the LED wall hadn't faded yet. My name still burned behind me in 10-feet-high letters, sharp and clean like the truth they'd never bothered to ask for. Across the ballroom, glasses hovered midair. Conversations stalled mid-ward. Eyes flicked from screen to stage, stage to me, me to one another, trying to stitch together what their egos wouldn't let them believe. I stepped forward slowly, not rushing. Silence had gravity, and I had waited 17 years for this silence. Good evening, I said, my voice smooth, unhurried. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. It means a great deal to host the Langford family reunion here at Monroe Pavilion. A stir, more confusion than acknowledgement. Someone in the back shifted, a cough. Sloane stood frozen beside the stage, crimson gown tight at the shoulders, face blank. I understand there was some confusion about who arranged tonight's event, I continued. Allow me to clarify. The screens behind me flickered again. This time a transition into motion. Video clips played in sequence. The first Monrock's property in Chicago. My team laying marble floors in Malta. A ribbon-cutting ceremony in Singapore. Black tie galas across Paris, New York, Dubai, logos, headlines, pressings. Then came footage of hotel interiors, hallways with mirrored walls, banquet halls glimmering in amber light, the fragrance system launching for the first time at the pavilion. Each scene ended with the same logo. Monroe Luxe Group followed by the same signature. Cassidy Moore, founder and CEO. Faces turned. Whispers bloomed like gasps held too long. And since we're being precise tonight, I said, turning slightly, some of you will be receiving a folder shortly. Just a small thank you package for your continued belief in tradition. Right on cue, uniformed staff moved across the room. They placed sleek navy folders into waiting hands. Richard, Sloane, Uncle Dean, Aunt Felicia, the core. Langfords, the ones who had made it clear after year that I did not belong. Richard opened his folder first. His lips moved silently as he read. In his hands, an itemized invoice for tonight's event booked under Langford Global Reunion VIP Tier Plus with a 50% prestige markup. Beneath that, Monroe Luxe's corporate press kit, my biography. A Forbes spread headlined the woman who built empires while her family watched the wrong sister. Sloane stared at hers. Her fingers were stiff, her grip too tight. This is manipulation, she finally said. This whole thing, it's a setup. You planned this. I met her eyes level. I planned an event. Yes. The fact that you didn't know whose event it was is not my manipulation. It's your neglect. A few people murmured. Sloane flared. I made this happen. I got us this venue. You think showing up in a suit makes you someone? Noah, standing near the media table, tapped his tablet. The screen changed again. It showed a document, an internal Monroe Luxe contract dated 3 weeks ago, signed by one Sloane Langford, recipient of a customized premium package, marked approved by CM in the upper right corner, Cassidy Moore. I looked at her. You did get us the venue through our VIP portal where I approved it personally. She said nothing. And I continued. You approved a floral concept that's part of our proprietary scent experience designed by our brand team and trademarked last year. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. Every guest walked into my space, sat under my chandeliers, drank from my cellars. You didn't bring us here, Sloane. I let you in. A silence thicker than before wrapped around the room. Even Richard had lowered his gaze. And then she never needed your validation. A voice called out from the back. Calm, measured female. Only your silence. Heads turned. Margaret Langford stepped forward. Pearls at her throat. Steel in her step. I hadn't seen her in years. Not since she quietly vanished from the family circuit after a falling out over inheritance politics, as Sloane once called it. She moved past startled relatives, never breaking eye contact with me. You used ML partners, she said quietly. More statement than question, I nodded. You were the only one who ever asked what I was building. And the only one who didn't laugh when you said luxury hotels, she added. Margaret turned to the crowd. I backed her first loan discreetly through a private vehicle. She didn't ask for help. She earned it. And now, she gestured to the room. You all finally see who you've been ignoring. I wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, I let the silence work. Sloane stared at the document in her hands. Her voice cracked. This rate. This is 50% above market. I looked at her with the faintest trace of a smile. Family search charge, years of interest. There's something deliciously poetic about watching someone choke on their own ego. By 8 o'clock, the ballroom had emptied of most formalities. Conversations fractured into tight little clusters, laughter laced with caution. The champagne hadn't stopped flowing, but people now sipped instead of gulped. The music had softened. The energy had shifted from triumphant to tentative, and I was still standing. I made my way to the concierge desk, where a lineup of pavilion staff stood ready behind the marble counter, each holding elegant navy-labeled folios. Their expressions were practiced, professional. Mine was unreadable. Cassidy, Noah murmured at my side. We're ready to begin room assignments. I gave a slight nod. Proceed. Sloane was first to approach. She walked with forced composure, her heels clicking faster than necessary, her gown now stiff with the burden of being seen. She extended her hand automatically, expecting keys to her usual top-floor skyline view, clawfoot. Tub personalized pillow menu. Instead, the concierge offered her a sleek envelope marked Queen Standard in her wing. A modest room, no windows, functional, clean. Sloane blinked. There must be a mistake. No, Miss Langford, the concierge said smoothly. Due to unexpected VIP arrivals, your reservation was reassigned. We hope the accommodations will still meet your standards. Her jaw tightened. Do you know who I am? I stepped in beside her. Serene. They do, I said quietly. That's why they handed you exactly what was prepared. She turned to me, fury and disbelief mingling on her face. This is petty. Oh, I replied. This is precise. She took the envelope, walked off stiffly, her spine trying to make up for everything her name no longer could. Cousin Logan arrived next, grinning like this was all a game. He'd once made fun of the cheap blazer I wore at a Langford holiday party, calling me the hired help. He hadn't aged into his wit. As he said, crazy night, huh? Eventful, I agreed, then nodded at the staff member next to me. The man stepped forward. Mr. Langford, your interview is scheduled for 9:00 a.m. tomorrow. Monroe Lux is reviewing candidates for assistant property manager in Boston. Logan's face froze. Interview. You submitted your resume through our careers portal last month, I said gently. I remember the name. His cheeks flushed. I didn't know. Doesn't change the qualifications we require, I replied. But punctuality will help. He took the folder without another word and shuffled off. Suddenly shorter than I remembered. Richard appeared last. He didn't rush, didn't bark orders, just approached in silence. A glass of untouched champagne in one hand. His tie had loosened. His eyes, so often used to looking through me, were finally on me. I suppose this is the part where I say something, he said. I raised an eyebrow. You could, he sighed. I was wrong. The words hung. They're brittle. I should have believed in you or at least paid attention. But you have to understand. I thought I was protecting our family's name. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I said. My voice even. You made a decision about who I was, and you stuck to it because it was easier than accepting I'd outgrown the version you created. His face twitched. You didn't just doubt me. You erased me. That takes more than a handshake to undo. Richard lowered his gaze. For the first time in my life he looked small. I don't expect forgiveness, he murmured. But I hope this doesn't end here. I said nothing. Just turned and walked away. As I approached the elevator, Ethan was waiting. He had an envelope in his hands. He held it out without a word. You may not want to read this, he said. But I think you should. It was a handwritten letter from Richard. It wasn't revenge. It was closure. Served at room temperature with a view of the skyline they thought I'd never reach. The city glowed like a breathing organism, its lights pulsing softly against the glass walls of the Monroe Pavilion's penthouse. Below, the last traces of the reunion faded, laughter now quieter, heels no longer clicking with the same certainty. Up here everything felt still, earned. I stood barefoot by the window, suit jacket draped over the arm of a velvet chair, hair loosened, pulse steady. Behind me, Noah sat at the bar, tablet in hand. Website traffic's up 300%. He said, trending keywords, Cassidy Moore, Monroe Luxio, and strangely enough, Langford family drama. I smirked. Not exactly the brand alignment we planned. Maybe not, he replied. But the message landed. Clean, elegant, ruthless without being cruel. That was the goal. My phone buzzed on the table beside the champagne bucket. I glanced down. Sloan. So we should talk. I picked it up, thought for a moment, and typed back. Me. Breakfast. Is at 9:00. I own that cafe. Noah let out a short laugh. Want me to cancel that reservation? Number come. Let her see what service actually looks like. He returned to his tablet, tapping out room comp reports. I reached for the envelope I hadn't opened earlier, the one Ethan had handed me after the fallout downstairs. It felt heavier now, like time had crept into the fold. I peeled it open. The handwriting was unmistakably my father's. Sharp where it used to be. Bold, smaller than I remembered. Cassidy, I don't know how to make up for the silence. I only know I regret it. I was wrong about you, about what you chose, and about what strength really looks like. You didn't just build something. You became someone I didn't have the courage to understand. That's on me. If there's still space for a conversation, I'd take it. No pride, no script. That. I folded it gently and placed it in the drawer of the desk. I didn't lock it. From the hallway, Ethan called out, Noah wants to know if we're greenlit for Tokyo pre-opening. I stepped away from the window and picked up the phone. Patch me in. A moment later, the line clicked. Tokyo HQ here. It's Cassidy. Everything's ready. Final confirmation. One question, I said. Name of the top suite in the new tower. There was a pause on the other end. Untitled as of now. I smiled. Call it the Langford. Silence. then understood. I ended the call and sat down at the desk, the letter still quietly resting a few inches from my hand. My phone buzzed again. Noah sending over preliminary press mock-ups. I swiped it away. Instead, I opened my notes app, typed a single sentence. You don't need to silence the past. Just build louder than it ever spoke. They tried to silence her with shame, but she answered with legacy. The ones who once mocked her success now walked through halls she designed, breathed air she curated, and paid for the privilege of being seen by her. Justice didn't come with fury, but with facts, elegance, and a receipt. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but it resonates powerfully once it's heard. Because when the past underestimates you, the greatest victory is building a future so undeniable it speaks for itself.